It took a full half an hour for Lu Yuzhao and the two of them to reach the Zhen household on North Water Street. Along the way, Ding Songyan kept his silence, watching the streets with focused attention, absorbing every useful detail like parched earth drinking down a sudden rain. As the seat of Dingjiang Prefecture's administration, Linjiang County's streets were all paved with gray-white stone slabs. Open channels ran along one or both sides of the road, with covered drains running beneath them. No smell of filth hung in the air. The streets were busy. Vendors selling pearl ornaments and combs, embroidered silks, blades and throwing stones, paintings and folding fans. Preserved fruits and cool drinks were everywhere, yet wooden rails kept them from spilling into the flow of carts and horses. Figures dressed as wandering heroes and martial artists were common, men and women, old and young alike. But Ding Songyan saw none of the physical abnormalities his sister had described. They were apparently not so common. Among the crowd, several men and women moved through the lanes carrying pole loads, coal stoves and cookware up front, boxes of ingredients behind. When someone showed interest, they would stop, stir-fry a dish on the spot, and fill the air with the smell of it. On the second and third floors of the buildings lining the street, windows would open from time to time. Women called down orders for dishes or preserved fruits or cold drinks, lowering ropes with bamboo baskets holding their coins. Ding Songyan had initially taken this for strict propriety, ladies of a house too proper to step outside. Then he looked again at the women competing for attention on the street below, and at the men doing the same thing with their dangling baskets, and he came to a realization. It was laziness, pure and simple. Too lazy to come downstairs. Too lazy to go out. Wait outside the gate. After the gatekeeper admitted them, Lu Yuzhao told Bull to wait outside. She led Ding Songyan in through the side entrance, past the inner screen wall, and along a covered walkway into the compound, moving with easy familiarity. Taking in the rockeries and ponds, the ornamental stones and pavilions along the way, Ding Songyan felt a quiet worry creep in. A physician would likely be seeing him soon. Would the doctor notice that something was wrong? That he was in some sense a borrowed corpse returning to life? It was a serious question that deserved careful thought, but set against the threat of someone still wanting him dead, it was the lesser of two dangers. He could only be grateful they were consulting a doctor and not a monk or a Taoist priest. Your cousin Wanqing is only a concubine of the second master of the Jin family, Lu Yuzhao said in a low voice as the independent courtyard where Qin Wanqing lived came into view. She was still wearing her black gauze veil hat, her back straight as ever. But she is greatly favored, and the second master is the eldest legitimate son, so she carries some weight in this household. Only a concubine? And this world cares about legitimate and illegitimate lines too. Ding Songyan noted the details with quiet amusement. Following a maidservant who had come out to receive them, he entered the courtyard with Lu Yuzhao. Water flowed in with a rush, driving a water wheel at the side of the pond, whose motion carried through to a set of wooden connecting rods that extended into the building, pushing back and forth in a steady rhythm. Stirred by the moving water, mist rose from the pond, its lotus leaves a vivid green, bringing a breath of coolness to the courtyard and cutting through the thick summer heat. A faint fragrance wafted through the air. Not a mosquito in sight. Inside the room, Ding Songyan saw at once a fan-like contraption of wooden blades spinning rapidly. Connecting rods drove the mechanism, sending out a steady stream of cool air. Combined with 4 basins of ice set in the corners, the room felt nothing like midsummer. Quite advanced. He murmured to himself, surprised. Water-driven fan wheel. Have you forgotten it, Songyan? A voice came from behind a folding screen, carrying a light smile and a touch of languid ease. Ding Songyan turned. A graceful figure stepped around the edge of the screen. Her hair was drawn into a drooping chignon with a floral ornament placed at her brow. A bright red silk skirt gathered high at the chest and over it, a sheer half-sleeve of gauze draped. She was fair-skinned and full-figured, with vivid features and a bewitching disposition. In one hand, she held a mirror with a glass face. The women of the Lu line really do come in every circumstance, rich or poor, down or successful, but never ugly. No wonder she is so favored. And this world already has functional glassware. A luxury item, by the look of it. Ding Songyan did not answer Qin Wanqing's question. He had no need to. The family would explain for him. Lu Yuzhao, who had already removed her black gauze veil hat, spoke in a measured tone. Wanqing, Songyan was attacked. He no longer remembers the past. Attacked? Qin Wanqing's expression fell. She handed her mirror to a maidservant and circled halfway around Ding Songyan. Aunt, what do you mean? Lu Yuzhao glanced at the personal maidservant standing beside Qin Wanqing. Seeing that her niece had not dismissed the girl, she calmly told the whole story from beginning to end, leaving nothing out. Qin Wanqing listened with a slight frown, then turned to Ding Songyan. Songyan, you truly remember nothing? Nothing. Ding Songyan kept it brief. Qin Wanqing paced a step or two, brow still furrowed, and spoke to her maidservant. Sueha, go and find out whether Physician Xiao is at the clinic or here in the household. If he is here, invite him over. And Master Yu as well. The maidservant Sueha acknowledged this and moved toward the door. Wait. Qin Wanqing called her back and pondered a moment. Invite Physician Xiao first. After a quarter hour, then go for Master Yu. Yes. Sueha asked no questions. In less time than it took to drink a cup of tea, the physician surnamed Xiao arrived at the courtyard. He was close to 50, with a long 5-strand beard, an unremarkable face, and a lean, tall build. He listened to Qin Wanqing's account and then, without ceremony, took Ding Songyan's pulse. Ding Songyan watched Physician Xiao's expression from the corner of his eye, uneasy about what conclusion the man might reach. After a moment, the physician withdrew his hand and had Ding Songyan lie back on a rattan cooling couch. He worked his way across the body, pressing here, pinching there, tapping elsewhere. In a half-conscious way, Ding Songyan felt as though he were back in his old world, lying on an examination table for a health screening. Would just the 4 diagnostic methods not be enough? In a world where martial arts flourish like this, injuries must be common, so the medicine has probably developed to match. He was still turning the thought over when Physician Xiao finished his examination. He cupped his hands to Qin Wanqing. No injuries. No illness. Then why has he forgotten everything that came before? Qin Wanqing's expression grew serious. Lu Yuzhao, who had withdrawn behind the folding screen, took 2 involuntary steps forward. Ding Songyan was equally puzzled. Not a single injury anywhere on the body. So how did the original Ding Songyan die? Or did the act of inhabiting this body heal the wounds? Or does this world have martial techniques that attack the soul without marking the flesh? Did the original Ding Songyan's soul simply shatter? Physician Xiao gave a rueful smile. In decades of practice, and in all I encountered during my training with the Medicine King sect, I have never come across a case of soul departure sickness with no outward sign whatsoever. He weighed his words. It is possible that Songyan's condition stems from the mind rather than the body. Extreme fright can do this. He may recover gradually over time. Then he turned to Ding Songyan directly. If you feel unwell in the coming days, or begin to recall something, come and find me at Life Extending Clinic on Longxing Street. Seeing a hesitation in Ding Songyan's expression, he smiled. I will charge nothing. My interest is in understanding how a case of soul departure sickness this unusual comes about. If I gain any insights, I will have something worth sharing when I next visit friends and colleagues at my sect. Your Medicine King sect has quite an academic spirit. Ding Songyan understood the physician's intention well enough and agreed. Qin Wanqing did not take the physician at his word about charging nothing. She had Sueha bring out several silver ingots and press them on him. Physician Xiao declined twice, then accepted. After the physician left, a short while passed, and then a figure entered the room without a sound. It was a middle-aged man with a somber expression, wearing black fitted short clothes and a small cap. His arms and legs were somewhat long, and the outer edges of his ears showed a faint ridge of white. Does that count as a physical abnormality? Ding Songyan looked away and did not stare. Qin Wanqing gave a brief account of the whole affair, then spoke in a serious tone. Master Yu, Songyan is my cousin. He has been in Dingjiang Prefecture for less than a year. He earned his place telling stories outside Dangkong Temple with the guild head's blessing, and he has always kept to the rules. He has not offended anyone. I suspect this matter is aimed at our Zhen household. Someone may have tried to use his connection to me to move against us. When he refused to cooperate, they tried to have him killed. By the grace of our ancestors, he survived. But if this goes unresolved, there will be no end to the trouble. She is sharp. Tying my situation to the Zhen household is the only way the household's retainer would act on behalf of a concubine's young cousin. I would have said exactly the same thing. You have to frame it at the highest possible stakes to make a case. Ding Songyan approved silently. Master Yu listened in silence, then looked at Qin Wanqing. I will inform the patriarch. He turned to Ding Songyan. Ding Songyan, after you leave the Zhen household, go about your business as usual. Show no sign that anything has changed. Go to Dangkong Temple tomorrow as you normally would. I will be watching from the shadows. Dangle the bait and see what surfaces. A kind of fishing, in its own way. Ding Songyan agreed at once. Whatever else, having a skilled fighter watching from the shadows was far better than having none. There was nowhere to hide in any case. After Master Yu left, Qin Wanqing took out several more silver ingots, placed them in a coin pouch, and handed it to Lu Yuzhao, who had come out from behind the screen. Aunt, take this. Use it to nourish Songyan and Qingyan. It is for the two of them. Do not decline on their behalf. Lu Yuzhao could not refuse and took it. Cousin Wanqing really is a capable woman. Though, since the money is for me and little sister, she could have given it directly to me rather than asking mother to hold it. Ding Songyan watched from the side with barely concealed longing. Everything he was going to need from here on out would require starting capital. By the time they returned to the house on Qingyu Lane, the sky had gone dark. The matter was unresolved, and it was unwise to discuss it for fear of the walls having ears. The family of 5 could not let themselves grieve, or feel the weight of it, or give way to anger. They ate dinner quietly, exchanged a few words of nothing in particular, then each washed hands and feet and face from the water vat, and cleaned their teeth with bristle brushes made from pig hair. Bull shifted the storage boxes in the main room, and assembled a simple sleeping surface for himself, laid out his bedding, and lay down. Catching Ding Songyan's look, he scratched the back of his head and gave a foolish grin. Early start tomorrow. You should get some rest too, Songyan. You really did draw the shortest straw. Ding Songyan thought without saying it, and turned into the west wing. A screen of wooden strips and hempen cloth divided the room in two. Ding Qingyan slept on the inner side. He blew out the candle, lay down on the somewhat hard wooden bed, and stared up at the ceiling in the dark. Shadows drifted across it, shifting with the moonlight from outside. Some time passed. Then, from the inner room, Ding Qingyan said in a low voice, "Second brother. Be careful tomorrow." "I will." A small warmth moved through Ding Songyan's chest. This unearned sister of his was a good person. He turned the thought over, then spoke quietly. "Little sister, why do I get the feeling eldest brother looks nothing like the rest of us?" Behind the screen, Ding Qingyan was silent for a long while before she answered. "In the way you storytellers would tell it, mother was known as a great beauty back in Yuezhong Prefecture. A predator took notice of her. He found his moment and abducted her. After some years, the man was slain by righteous heroes of the Jianghu, and mother was rescued. But by then there was already a child." Ding Songyan did not know what to say. Ding Qingyan's voice came through the screen with a quiet, self-deprecating note. "Sometimes you can only try to find the good in it. If not for what happened, how would a down-and-out scholar like father ever have married someone like mother? How would any of us be here? So that is why mother makes you wear a veil whenever you go out." Ding Songyan understood all at once. "Yes." Ding Qingyan let out a long breath. "Tell me, Yuezhong Prefecture has watchtowers too. It has famous sects and great clans. So how did something like that still happen?" Ding Songyan pressed his lips together. "Any measure can solve most problems. None can solve all of them." The siblings fell into silence together. Watching the drifting shadows on the ceiling above him, Ding Songyan felt, for the first time, the weight of how dangerous this world truly was. And the reckless lunatics here were probably more numerous and more dangerous than anything he had known before. People who carried lethal weapons had lethal impulses to match. And on top of that, martial arts. He had to find a way to learn some form of self-defense. He could not afford to die again at the hands of some lunatic without warning. Could not afford to be caught helpless when it mattered. Amid the tumble of these thoughts, Ding Songyan's mind gradually grew still and clear. The pale moonlight filtered through the wax paper of the window, casting a thin glow that softened the darkness inside the room rather than deepening it, stirring a stillness that pulled the mind towards sleep. Ding Songyan lay quietly with his thoughts for a while, then turned his head toward the screen and called out in a low voice, "Little sister." No response, only the faint, steady rhythm of breathing, so soft it could barely be heard unless you held your own breath to listen. "She's asleep." Ding Songyan looked away. He had just remembered that he had never thought to ask about the Zhen household, what it was, what standing it held in Dingjiang Prefecture, and whether it had recently become entangled in any trouble. He was beginning to think that what had happened to his predecessor, an ordinary storyteller by all accounts, really might have something to do with the Jin family. "Forget it, I'll ask in the morning." He closed his eyes and tried to coax sleep, but it would not come. After graduation he had worked 2 years, then spent many more building his business, always far from home, returning no more than twice a year. There had been nights like this before, lying awake in the small hours, feeling the hollow ache of wanting to go home. But most of the time he had felt nothing of the sort, and he had mocked himself for it, calling himself cold-hearted. Yet now, in this moment, a melancholy settled over him that he could find no way to shake. The old poets could still say, "May we both live long, and share this moonlight across 1,000 miles." But for him, this moon was not that moon, and tonight's moon was not the moon of any life he had known. Then, from the other side of the screen, Ding Qingyan let out a murmur. "I want to learn martial arts." The words trailed into silence with nothing to follow them. Talking in her sleep, Ding Songyan opened his eyes and looked instinctively toward the simple screen. Several moments passed. He said to himself, without sound, "Who doesn't?" He returned his gaze to the shadowed rafters. Then Ding Qingyan mumbled again, her words half-formed. "Mother, second brother, I won't let anyone bully you again." Ding Songyan froze when he heard it. It was a long moment before a quiet, rueful laugh came out of him. The small sounds of a girl turning over in her sleep filled the room, and gradually his mind settled. Sleep came at last. The next morning, the night soil cart arrived and drove away the dark, jolting the morning awake. Ding Songyan carried his chamber bucket out into the courtyard and found his father, Ding Xingyi, already pulling open the front gate. The mosquitoes resting near the elm tree scattered all at once, drawing after them a cluster of moths that seemed to have been hiding somewhere nearby. One by one they emptied their buckets into the cart, then used the rinse water to water the tree. As they finished, Ding Songyan heard his father, who had already put on his four-cornered settled cap, say to Lu Yuzhao with unconcealed admiration, "The night soil foreman out there wears rough cloth on the outside, but underneath it's all silk. Day to day, he lives better than the constable chief at the yamen. The night soil trade really is a fine trade. The kind of people who can corner that trade are not ordinary people," Lu Yuzhao said, without particular feeling. "If you ask me, it is Dankong Temple that is the true benefactor of all households. Not only does it offer prayers and rites to harmonize the heavens, its disciples go out through the villages teaching farming techniques and the art of composting. Since His Majesty ascended the throne, the harvests have been good year after year, and the price of night soil keeps rising." Ding Xingyi stood before the elm tree with his bristled toothbrush, working on his teeth as he spoke. And so the morning light passed gently away, in the sound of family talk and a simple breakfast of congee and small dishes. While Lu Yuzhao and the others were clearing away the bowls and wiping down the square table, Ding Xingyi drew Ding Songyan aside. "You have things to do today. Don't stint on yourself. Take these 2 chien of silver." The middle-aged scholar glanced at Lu Yuzhao's back and pressed a small piece of broken silver into Ding Songyan's hand, speaking quietly. "This is not household money. This is what I have saved on my own. Keep it for yourself." Ding Songyan, who had nothing to his name, did not refuse. Ding Xingyi was quiet for 2 breaths, then said under his breath, "Be careful today. Don't take risks just because you have the Zhen household's retainer watching over you." With that, he patted Ding Songyan on the elbow, picked up his folding fan, and went out through the courtyard door. Ding Songyan had not yet turned back to help his mother and sister clear up when Bull came over, scratching his head with a shamefaced look. "Songyan, I don't have much on me. Gave it all to mother. If you can't find anything to eat at midday, come find me at the docks. I'll share whatever I've got." "All right," Ding Songyan said. After Bull left, Lu Yuzhao finished tidying up and came to Ding Songyan with her black gauze veil hat in hand. "I'm going to copy Buddhist sutras today. Here are 2 chien of silver." Her tone was matter-of-fact, as though she did not want him to feel the weight of it. "If you are only wandering about Dankong Temple today, that will look suspicious. Buy something to eat if anything takes your fancy. Buy something if you like the look of it." Having been pressed with yet another piece of broken silver, Ding Songyan was at a loss for words. He watched his mother go out through the courtyard door and pull it shut behind her. Then Ding Qingyan, hair already dressed in her twin spiral buns, appeared at the doorway of the main room and beckoned to him with a conspiratorial wave. "Second brother, come here. Come here." Ding Songyan went over and laughed softly. "I am not taking your savings." The girl puffed her lips. "So you look down on me? You don't treat me as your sister, do you?" She arranged her face into an expression of trembling, imminent tears. Seeing that Ding Songyan was entirely unmoved, she huffed. "I just want to give you some copper coins. You're going to Dankong Temple today. You'll definitely want to listen to the storytellers, hear about ancient history, and hear about the Jianghu. Are you really going to tip them with silver? Excellent read. Ding Songyan had already been turning over the idea of spending the day at the storytelling stalls to start building a picture of how this world worked. He thought and said, "Fine. Give me some." Ding Qingyan's face lit up at once. She bounced back into the west wing and returned with an embroidered coin pouch, its scent faintly sweet. Inside were several small silver ingots and a good number of loose copper coins. "These are from Sister Nwanching, and these are what you used to bring back and give me after your storytelling, telling me to save up something of my own rather than relying only on father and mother. There's still quite a bit left in the box." Ding Qingyan counted out the copper coins as she talked, her voice going on and on. Then gradually she fell quiet. When Ding Songyan took the coins from her, Ding Qingyan's smile came back. She raised a small fist. "Second brother, even if you've forgotten it all, I haven't. And I won't." Ding Songyan exhaled quietly and could only say, in a patronizing way, "Perhaps it will all come back to me one day." He turned the coins over in his hands. There were two kinds. One stamped Xingping Heavy Treasure with the inscription worth 5, another stamped Jianwu Circulating Treasure. Together, around 51. The characters are regular script, traditional form. I can read them well enough. Writing them is another matter. He tucked the 2 pieces of broken silver into the inner sleeve pocket stitched into the elbow of his pale straight robe, and put the copper coins in the belt pouch at his waist. He looked up. "Does Mother believe in Buddhism?" "No." Ding Qingyan shook her head. "That's Mother's job. Many wealthy households, to show their devotion, will have large numbers of Buddhist sutras or Taoist texts copied out, sometimes by family members, sometimes by hired hands. Since it tends to be the women of the household who favor this kind of work, they like to find women from decent families who can read and write to help. When I come of age, I can go too. So Mother earns money by copying sutras and scriptures?" Ding Songyan understood now, and confirmed that this world had both Buddhism and Taoism. That sort of work is not always available. It usually comes up around Buddhist festivals, or when some matriarch of a great house has a birthday. Ding Qingyan held up the coin pouch, which was noticeably heavy. "Most days, Mother works as a hairdresser. She goes into the inner quarters of households and helps the ladies with their elaborate hair arrangements. She also does facial hair removal, ear cleaning, and so on. If there is no work to be had, she stays home and does the washing and laundry with me, and sees to the food." Ding Songyan nodded, then glanced at Ding Qingyan with a trace of concern. "So you are home alone much of the time?" Ding Qingyan burst out laughing. "Second brother, don't worry. There are 5 watchtowers here. The Bright Knight sect and the Yi clan's arts are both strong in far sight. Nobody would dare bother me. Besides, I am quite formidable. Every boy and girl in Qingyu Lane does what I say." She raised her fist again. "I am the terror of Qingyu Lane." Before Ding Songyan could respond, the girl blinked, and her smile bloomed like a flower opening. "But the fact that you worried about me makes me happy. It means that even though you've forgotten everything, second brother, the bond between us is still there." Knock. 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 Someone knocked at the courtyard door. "Brother Ding, time to go." A voice like a cracking adolescent called from outside. Ding Songyan looked at Ding Qingyan. His sister gave a small nod. He crossed to the gate and opened it. Standing outside was a young man in a narrow-sleeved green robe, his hair tied up in black cloth. By Ding Songyan's estimate, he stood under 5 feet 7 inches. His features were decent enough, but his bearing was furtive, his eyes darting about in a way that gave him a shifty, weasel-like appearance. "Oh, Qingyan's home too." The young man's gaze slipped straight past Ding Songyan and landed on Ding Qingyan inside the courtyard. Where else would she be? Ding Songyan looked at the young man and raised an eyebrow. The young man scrunched up his shoulders and gave an awkward laugh. "Brother Ding, we ought to get going. I heard you had a bit of trouble yesterday." At this point Ding Qingyan called from a few paces back. "Su Chang'an, wait a moment. I have a few words for my second brother." "Of course, Sister Qingyan." Su Chang'an nodded quickly and waved at her. Ding Songyan went back inside, signaling for her to share her piece. Ding Qingyan pulled him toward the main room and lowered her voice. "That's Su Chang'an. He also lives in Qingyu Lane, over by the well. You used to like going to Dankong Temple with him. He is a thief." "A thief?" Ding Songyan's hand moved instinctively toward the elbow of his sleeve. Ding Qingyan laughed. "He wouldn't dare steal from you. Not if he wants to answer to the terror of Qingyu Lane." "Listen, While you're out today, would you help me pick out a gift for Chu Zhongheng? He went to all that trouble for us yesterday, and we ought to show some appreciation. You can't let too many favors pile up unreturned. Remember, he likes mechanical toys and gadgets. I'll give you the money this evening. That is the right thing to do. Ding Songyan approved. His sister added a few more reminders and gave him a brief account of the Zhen household's situation, then let Ding Songyan go out with Su Chang'an and leave Qingyu Lane. Brother Ding, what happened to you yesterday? Su Chang'an asked along the way, unable to contain his curiosity. He was genuinely concerned, of course. In his own mind, this was his future brother-in-law. Ding Songyan was unhurried. Rather than answering, he turned the question around. What time did you leave Dankong Temple yesterday? After the evening gathering. I came looking for you, but you're already gone. Su Chang'an answered without suspicion. The previous Ding Songyan's movements really were strange. Ding Songyan did not explain anything. He simply kept asking questions, drawing out information, and building up his picture of things. Talking and joking as they went, the two of them walked to Dankong Temple on the eastern side of the prefectural city. The market outside the temple was vast, the crowd thick and jostling shoulder to shoulder. Fruit, vegetables, preserved meats, pearl ornaments and jade pendants, blades and weapons, folding fans, sugar figurines and candied fish, all on display. Fire breathers and Taoist conjurers performed, along with kickball players and acrobats, singers and dancers. Gambling stalls and pitch-pot games tried to lure in passers-by, while traveling medicine sellers peddled dubious remedies and plain old licorice. It was everywhere at once. Through the clamor of hawkers and calls, Ding Songyan and Su Chang'an came to a stop beside a storyteller's pitch. Last time we left off with Jin Shaochong, a true lineage disciple of the Gan Kingdom's everlasting sect, who set out to challenge the Jianghu with his sword. But before he ever reached Nuyu or our great Zhao, he was met in the 5 Mounds Mountains of the Gan Kingdom by Su Yinzhong, the 4th-generation disciple of the Celestial Maiden sect, who broke his 7-killing sword art with his 12 ways of the Great Void, and told him plainly that his weakness was an insufficiently firm killing intent. Su Yinzhong's name shook the world that day. Those who enjoy such things placed him on the Jianghu's Jade Tree rankings with the comment, "Clear and graceful, brilliant and free." Now, you might wonder, dear listeners, how the Celestial Maiden sect comes to have male disciples. The words Celestial Maiden refer only to the origin of the sect's arts, not to its current members. It is the same with the Imperial Daughter sect, which traces its lineage to Nuwa, daughter of the Flame Emperor, yet counts both men and women among its disciples. As for Su Yinzhong, he comes from a family of deep martial heritage. His aunt, Su Ludan, was the beauty the Jianghu unanimously crowned as peerless 30 years ago. Now, dear listeners, as the saying goes, every flower finds an eye to admire it, and spring orchids and autumn chrysanthemums each have their season. When enthusiasts compile their rankings of great beauties and outstanding heroes, there is always argument. Who makes the list, who comes before whom? Everyone has their reasons, and those who disagree do not stop at words. Feuds have been started over it, and blood has been spilled. So for a long time now, such lists have carried no strict order. Only those of undisputed renown are included at all. Since the imperial court moved south, nearly 260 years have passed. In all that time, across the strife and upheaval of the age, only 2 women have been acclaimed peerless beauties by heroes and heroines of every nation without exception. One is Su Ludan of the Celestial Maiden sect, 30 years ago. The other is Feng Yining of the 5 Saints sect, 10 years past. Feng Yining swallowed a phoenix egg in childhood. By the time she stepped into the Jianghu at 16, she had already reached the Dharma realm and achieved the rank of Grandmaster. She blazed across 4 years, dazzling all who saw her, and no small number of heroes pledged themselves to follow wherever she led. In her final battle before returning to the 5 Saints sect, she met Ji Hani, the heretic of the void-annihilating way, and broke Ji's divine art of heaven and earth transmutation with her spear of righteousness and fist of honor, leaving Ji Hani with a crack in her spirit from which she has never recovered, shutting her out of the Heavenman realm and the rank of Supreme Master forever. Now you might say, dear listeners, losing one battle hardly seems reason for a lifetime of stagnation. But Ji Hani is also a woman of breathtaking talent, and she was only 19 at the time. She cultivates the Sutra of Celestial Heart Wisdom, one of the 3 great secret scriptures of the Sage Severing Way, and she had sought Feng Yining out herself, in the pride of her heart, issuing the challenge of her own accord. The loss was not a single exchange. And the root principle of the Sutra of Celestial Heart Wisdom, the divine art of heaven and earth transmutation, demands that one's own heart mirrors the heart of heaven. If one's own heart carries a crack, how can it merge with heaven's heart and achieve the heaven-man realm? Had she managed to defeat Feng Yining in a later encounter, that crack might have healed. But Feng Yining returned to the Five Saints sect and entered a life-or-death seclusion, seeking the heaven-man realm. 8 years have now passed with no word. By the precedents of old, she has in all likelihood been gone for some time. As they say, how pitiful the devoted souls of the Jianghu, who shall never again hear the name of the phoenix. Now, none of this is my own invention. The orthodox sects love nothing more than publishing the techniques and weaknesses of the heretical paths, so that their own people may be on guard. But I had best leave it there for today. Otherwise, if some wandering heretic from the sage-severing way passes through Dingjiang Prefecture and catches wind of this, they might come creeping to my door in the night and not even give me a clean death. Dear listeners, that is a risk I'd rather not take. So if this has been worth anything to you, reward me with a warm meal. Those with coin, thank you for it. Those without, thank you for your presence. Whatever you give is a kindness, and I am grateful for it. Ding Songyan tossed a few copper coins into the bamboo tray being passed around, then stayed to listen as the storyteller moved on to more tales of the Jianghu. By the time he finished, Su Chang'an was so caught up in it all that he could not help turning to Ding Songyan with a dreamy look. Brother Ding, do you think I could become a great thief? The kind who moves through moonlight and takes treasures right from under the noses of a whole array of masters. You. Ding Songyan gave him a sideways glance and said mildly, stand up straight. Su Chang'an looked baffled, but did as he was told. Ding Songyan studied him for a few breaths, and gradually a smile worked its way onto his face. Now there's the bearing of a great thief. Flattery costs nothing and buys goodwill. Why not? Su Chang'an was delighted beyond measure. He decided that Brother Ding was the finest friend he had ever had in his life. He kept his back straight and paced back and forth with great self-satisfaction. Ding Songyan listened for a while longer, then decided to head over to the storyteller who covered historical accounts, to learn what he could from that quarter. Throughout, he had been quietly watching the crowd around him, looking for anyone whose expression might betray surprise at his reappearance. He had taken 7 or 8 steps when someone sidled up to him and produced a thin booklet, speaking in a lowered voice. Interested? Portraits of the peerless beauties of the Jianghu. With illustrations. The artist has excellent brushwork. Only 3 silver or 24 copper coins. Ding Songyan glanced at the bookseller without speaking. The bookseller, young-faced but with the world-weary eyes of someone twice his age, looked left and right. Not interested in that one. What about this? Outstanding Heroes of the Jianghu. He produced another volume. Ding Songyan pointed at the portraits of peerless beauties with some amusement. Are these authentic? The bookseller had a rough idea what was meant, and was about to launch into his pitch, when he caught Su Chang'an beside Ding Songyan giving him a hard stare, and noticed the man who'd asked was smiling without quite smiling, his intentions unclear. He stumbled slightly. The artist never saw them in person. He could only imagine based on what circulates in the Jianghu. If you 2 gentlemen want something closer to the real thing, you might commission someone to go to Flame Capital and buy a copy by Master Xiaozhong. He has met 2 or 3 of the subjects himself. Ding Songyan let it drop and asked in thought, do you have anything relating to the Bright Knight sect? He had made up his mind to learn martial arts. The most prominent local option appeared to be the Bright Knight sect. Joining it would certainly be difficult, the odds vanishingly small, but Ding Songyan had always believed that aiming for the highest gives you a chance at the middle, while aiming low from the start guarantees an outcome worse still. So all his early preparations, he decided, ought to be set to the standard of seeking admittance to the Bright Knight sect. For that, he needed information. At the question, the bookseller took a sharp step back and shook his head firmly. Nothing. Ding Songyan raised an eyebrow. The bookseller glanced quickly in both directions and said in a rapid undertone, they are actually here in Dingjiang Prefecture. Taking liberties with the masters on the rankings and the portraits is all very well, since they're not in the area to come looking for you, isn't it? Ding Songyan clicked his tongue and moved on with Su Chang'an to the next storyteller's pitch. He listened for a long while, piecing together what he'd heard with the earlier tales of the martial world and what his sister had told him about the Zhen household. He began to form a first picture of this world. This place was called the Great Wilderness, or the Mountains and Seas Realm. After you the great son, Qi founded Xia, history seemed to diverge from the world Ding Songyan had come from. The mythology was familiar in outline, but skewed in its particulars. There had been a Qin and a first emperor who unified the great wilderness and brought the 100 ethnic groups to heel, but the dynasty had endured for over 200 years. Several lines of poetry Ding Songyan knew from his old world had appeared here as well, though their origins were unclear. The storyteller in question had been covering the history of the current dynasty and had only touched on earlier periods briefly. The current dynasty bore the name Great Zhao. The imperial family claimed descent from Zhurong, god of fire, and took Hong as their surname. They had once held the whole realm, but nearly 260 years ago, a great upheaval tore everything apart. The Daran, people of immense stature, the Zhorao, small but swift, the Sanshin, each bearing 3 bodies, the Sansho, each crowned with 3 heads, the Jingren, the quiet people of the southern reaches, the Junzi, a people renowned for their virtue, the Shoma, wanderers of the far western wastes, and the Chuanrong, the canine-headed of the north, all rose in rebellion at once, and the realm fell into chaos and disorder. A scion of the Hong line re-established the dynasty south of the Great River, at Flame Capital, and held back the tide of collapse through alliances and diplomacy. The north fell into prolonged conflict among the rebel peoples, and eventually coalesced into 3 nations. Su, founded by the Sanshin claiming descent from Emperor Shun, in alliance with the Shoma and Jingren, referred to by the storyteller as New Su. Gan, dominated by the Daran, Junzi and Zhorao. Feng, established by the Sansho, the Chuanrong and the Rong. The latter was separated from Great Zhao by Su and Gan, and shared no common border with it. Beyond the 4 main nations lay others, Ba and Tiandu among them, all on the outer edges of the wilderness. Since the southward crossing, the dynasty had seen prosperity give way to decline, with sects and noble clans fighting over influence and the heretical paths stirring chaos, until the late Emperor Qingzu, when brought peace through reconciliation with the great sects, reformed the system and restored a measure of flourishing. The current emperor pressed further still, building military strength under the reign named Jianwu, with hopes of reclaiming the northern territories in his lifetime. As for the martial arts, nothing had yet pointed to the existence of gods, spirits, or immortals as a distinct class of power. The Dharma realm marked the threshold of Grandmaster. The Heavenman realm was Supreme Master. The Spirit Platform realm was Sage. Common parlance held that a Grandmaster could anchor a prefecture, a Supreme Master guard a province, and a Sage protect a nation. At present, the world held no more than 14 sages, 10 of the orthodox paths and 4 of the heretical paths. The divide between orthodox and heretic had nothing to do with national allegiance. Those who embraced chaos as their purpose, who took pleasure in spreading catastrophe, whose arts were brutal and bloody, these were the heretical paths, hunted in every nation, though some states were not above making use of them to destabilize their enemies. Only those with a supreme master counted among the truly great sects or noble clans. In Great Zhao, these presently included the 6 sects and 4 schools, the 2 faiths and 3 clans, the 2 sacred grounds, the 2 reclusive orders, the Dankong agrarian order, the Body and Will heterodox sect, and the clan of Xingtian. Gan, Su, and Feng nations had their equivalents. The Everlasting Sect and the Celestial Maiden Sect were among Gan's foremost powers. The heretical paths had their own hierarchy. Those ranked at the top were collectively known as the 21 heretical ways, 9 above and 12 below. The Sage Severing Way was one of the upper 9. The local Bright Knight sect had once been a great power, but suffered devastating losses in the upheaval of 200 years ago and lost parts of its core heritage. A handful of surviving disciples had kept it alive through difficult years, eventually re-establishing it south of the Great River in Ning Province's Dingjiang Prefecture. Generations later, it had recovered some of its former strength and now counted several grandmasters among its ranks. The patriarch of the Zhen household, Zhen Qianfan, was the Grand Elder of the Four Waters Brotherhood, a gang whose influence ran through Ning Province's waterways. The Brotherhood had weakened in recent years, and now had only 2 grandmasters left. Patriarch Zhen was one of them, and carried significant standing within Dingjiang Prefecture. Every year, Great Zhao published the Orchid Rankings, assigning brief evaluative comments to heroes of all quarters. This was unrelated to cultivation realm or official rank, being based purely on demonstrated ability. The storyteller had so far mentioned only that grandmasters were divided into 2 grades, the lower, called subtlety attuned, and the higher, called spirit resonated. Sages and supreme masters were too few and too rare to be ranked at all. Ding Songyan was still ruminating over all of this when he prepared to move to the next storyteller's pitch. He had just turned to one side when he found himself looking directly at a pair of eyes. They were dark-irised and set wide, positioned on the left and right of a bronze-skinned chest. Below them, a very large navel opened and closed as a mouth. The lips slanted upward, marked by a conspicuous black mole, apparently intended to indicate where a nose might once have been. Ding Songyan's gaze traveled upward, slowly, across the raw edge of flesh at the neck, to the space where a head should have been, and found it entirely empty. A living person with no head. Wait. The clan of Xingtian? The headless figure in the open blue-black jacket, muscles knotted beneath, standing well over 9 feet, who had apparently already been on his way, glanced back at Ding Songyan, then turned and walked toward Dangkong Temple. That's one of the Wushou from Qian Province, Su Chang'an murmured beside him. The current emperor wants to strengthen the troops by combining Xingtian martial arts with military strategy. He sent this cavalry lieutenant here to Dingjiang Prefecture to drill the garrison. He paused. The Wushou dream every night of fighting their way back north. Xingtian martial arts. Worth considering. The thought struck Ding Songyan with unexpected force. One-sided force, for the moment. But where interest leads, action should follow. He decided he would find a way to make the acquaintance of that Wushou cavalry lieutenant. Ding Songyan had barely taken a step when his eyes, ever scanning out of habit, caught a face with an unguarded expression. The face belonged to a man in his early 30s wearing a cloth headscarf, his beard shaved clean, the tip of his nose faintly red and blotchy with the look of a heavy drinker. He was staring at Ding Songyan the way a man stares at a monster that has no business being where it is. The surprise and fear on his face were plain for anyone to see. The moment their eyes met, the man wheeled around and shoved his way into the market crowd. In an instant he was gone, swallowed up without a trace. Ding Songyan's first instinct was to give chase and grab him. But without any martial arts to speak of, his reactions were a beat too slow, and by the time he thought to move, there was no one left to find. Finding a man he knew to be dead strolling freely outside Dangkong Temple was enough to break his composure completely. The plan is working. Something will stir after this. No need to chase him now. I can only hope Master Yu is ready for it. Ding Songyan stared in the direction the blotchy-nosed man had fled, and fell into thought. Brother Ding, what are you looking at? Su Chang'an asked, curious. Ding Songyan collected himself. The headless Wushou cavalry lieutenant from earlier was long gone. Looks like a pickpocket got caught, Ding Songyan said, making it up on the spot and directing it squarely at Su Chang'an. Thieving never ends well. The first phone he had ever scraped and saved to buy had been lifted by a pickpocket. It had ruined several months of his life. Su Chang'an went pale. He stood on tiptoe and craned his neck in that direction repeatedly. I don't see anything. Where? What happened? They've already been taken away, Ding Songyan said, brushing it off. He turned toward another storyteller's pitch, outwardly unhurried, inwardly coiled tight with vigilance. Su Chang'an trailed after him in a daze, his eye for likely marks temporarily elsewhere. Hasn't been caught yet, by the look of it. The ones who've been through the yamen a few times are old hands. They don't scare easily. Ding Songyan gave his neighbor a sideways glance, then settled into the crowd, half listening to the storyteller's legends and sagas, while letting his gaze drift idly across the scene. Perhaps because tales of the martial world already read like legend in their own right, the sagas and romance storytellers had to draw mainly on mythology and the affairs of ordinary people. The latter, being something listeners could reach out and touch with their own hands, drew a significant crowd, packed so tightly around the pitch that there was barely room to breathe. Then Su Chang'an poked Ding Songyan's arm. Ding Songyan's chest tightened. He turned. The decent-looking but shifty-eyed figure beside him was pointing to one side, voice low. Brother Ding, look over there. The crowd was too thick to see past. Ding Songyan stepped back a pace or two and changed his position. He did not need Su Chang'an to say anything more. He saw immediately who was meant. She was a girl of 16 or 17, dressed in a plain white round-collar cross-front jacket and a white trimmed skirt with green edging and many pleats, her hair worn in 2 hanging loops that fell past her shoulders, lending her a touch of girlish charm. Her eyes lifted slightly at the outer corners, her chin tapered to a delicate point. Her nose was small and straight with a soft, rounded tip, and her skin was pale and smooth as cream. The way she glanced about carried both a lively prettiness and the early bloom of a beauty not yet fully formed, purity and allure coexisting on her face without the least contradiction. The jade-green flower ornament at the top of the silver pin in her hair swayed gently, echoing the jade pendants at her waist that moved with every step. She simply stood there, drawing glances from every direction. Those glances would land, pull away, and circle back. "Something, isn't she, Brother Ding?" Su Chang'an murmured admiringly. "At this age already, give it a few more years, and she'll be the kind of face that topples kingdoms." Then, catching Ding Songyan's eye, he added quickly, "Of course, she's still a little short of Sister Qingyan. Just a little. Heh, at least you know what to say. She really is a little short. In height, specifically. Different styles entirely, can't really compare. One is bright and delicate, the other is pure and beguiling." Ding Songyan was still ruminating when the storyteller finished his set and began collecting tips. The girl produced a silver ingot and snapped it into the bamboo tray. By the look of it, a full tael. Goodness, what generosity! The storyteller lit up at once, praise tumbling out of him. The girl lifted her chin slightly, looking rather pleased with herself. "I'll be back tomorrow to hear more." Free with her money, and not the least bit cautious about it. Still something of a child. Clearly hasn't been out in the world long. Ding Songyan found himself wondering if he might find some way to relieve this girl of a little silver. If I don't earn it, someone else will. Better me than them. Only then did he notice the maidservant at the girl's side, dressed in a green silk skirt, trim and pretty. In the shadow of the girl's looks, everyone around her had instinctively overlooked the maid entirely. As he watched, Ding Songyan turned to Su Chang'an. "Have you seen this girl around before?" "Never," Su Chang'an answered, genuinely puzzled. "If I had, I'd have had it all over Qingyu Lane already." "She doesn't look like she's from this city," Ding Songyan pressed. Su Chang'an, still holding his back admirably straight, sounded quite certain. "Definitely not. A face like that, traveling without a veil, not covering herself the way Sister Qingyan does. If she were local, she'd be as famous as Zheng Zhuxi of the Bright Night sect by now. And Zheng Zhuxi isn't even as good-looking." Ding Songyan lost interest in making money rather quickly, his brow creasing slightly. When he had first arrived and seen Ding Qingyan, he had been struck by her looks, but had not thought much of it, assuming instinctively that this world simply produced beautiful people as a matter of course. A few days of walking the streets had corrected that impression. Looks like his sisters were rare, possibly exceptional. In the 2 days he had been here, he had not seen anyone remotely comparable. And now, out of nowhere, another girl of the same caliber had appeared. Was that not a little too convenient? Had all the beauties of the realm decided to converge on Dingjiang Prefecture? There was something else. This girl clearly loved listening to storytellers. Yet Su Chang'an had never seen her here in the days before. That meant she had likely arrived in Dingjiang only in the last day or two. And in those same last days, one other thing had happened. The second son of the Ding family had vanished under strange circumstances and turned up dead in a ruined temple outside the city. The two things may have nothing directly to do with each other, but the timing sits badly with me. It feels like something is gathering in Dingjiang Prefecture. Winds from every quarter converging on one place. Ding Songyan ruminated quietly in his mind. Su Chang'an, meanwhile, was already angling in the direction the girl in the white skirt and her maid had gone. Slap! Ding Songyan's hand shot out and caught him by the shoulder. "Where do you think you're going?" Su Chang'an startled, then said, blinking, "That girl is carrying a fair amount of silver, and she doesn't seem to be paying much attention to it. No real guard up. I thought I might do a little business." Seeing Ding Songyan look at him in silence, he added, a little sheepishly, "She's pretty, yes. But I still need money for food. If I don't go, someone else in the trade will. Besides, she's not Sister Qingyan. I don't owe her anything." Ding Songyan clicked his tongue. A girl who looks like that, traveling alone to Dingjiang, and not a trace of wariness on her face, not even a veil. You'd really try that? Travel is hard. Long travel is harder still. There are no watchtowers on the road. The way I see it, a girl like her either comes from a powerful family with skilled fighters traveling close by, or she's no pushover herself. If you have a death wish, you don't have to pick today. Su Chang'an's expression fell. "You're right." He turned to Ding Songyan with something close to reverence. "Brother Ding, you sound just like my master. In our trade, skill matters, but the most important thing isn't skill. It's reading people. Who can be targeted, who can't, who's easy, who isn't. You have to see all of that before you make a move. My master has always said that's where I fall short. Not skill, not judgment. The real problem is the brain, and yours has room to grow. Ding Songyan kept the thought to himself, patted Su Chang'an on the shoulder, and said, "Stop going after fruit sellers and old women with needlework baskets. A man who is meant to become a great thief can't afford to debase himself like that. Even if you made a name for it, you'd only earn people's contempt." Su Chang'an stared at him. After a moment he said, "But then how do I eat? You really can't help yourself, can you? There must be honest work somewhere in a world with a commercial economy that developed." Ding Songyan sighed. "Rob the rich to feed the poor. Only those who've got their wealth through cruelty and greed." He had not known Su Chang'an long enough to say more than this. He left the young man to his thoughts, said his goodbyes, and continued wandering outside Dangkong Temple, waiting for whatever change the blotchy-nosed man's alarm might set in motion, hoping it would bring the hidden danger to a head sooner rather than later. "Ding Songyan! Ding Songyan!" Someone was calling his name from not far off. Ding Songyan tensed, turned, and looked toward the voice with a mild smile. It was a man not yet 30, his head wrapped in black cloth, a plaster from his own stock stuck to his face, which gave him a comical look. He was holding up a cloth signboard with 2 lines written on it: "Guaranteed cure for all falls and injuries." 1 plaster, 1 copper coin. No literary flair, but admirably concise. Ding Songyan said nothing and waited for the man to state his purpose. The plaster-faced man was brimming with excitement. "Ding Songyan, how come you're not at your pitch today?" He pointed at the empty spot nearby. "So that's the stall I got through the Jeune household's connection with the guild. I wonder if it can be sublet for cash. I have no storytelling skills left to speak of, though listening just now I noticed this world's storytellers don't seem to use the elaborate techniques and stock phrases of the tradition I knew before. Clear speech and a coherent story seem to be enough. But my goal is martial arts, not becoming a talking act." Before Ding Songyan could say anything, the plaster seller was already rattling on. "A young lady was asking after you just now. Like something out of a painting." "Oh." Ding Songyan's mind produced an image before he could stop it. Miss! The plaster seller was already calling out in a loud voice. "Ding Songyan's here." In all of Dingjiang Prefecture, his historical accounts are in the top 3, easily. Thanks for the praise. That's the essence of commerce right there, everyone talking each other up. Sure enough, Ding Songyan found himself looking at the girl in the white skirt again, her maidservant at her side. The girl came over quickly, without the least reserve, her expression bright and eager. "Ding Songyan, when are you telling stories today? I want to listen." Ding Songyan blinked. His thoughts moved quickly. He brought his hands together in a cupped fist salute. "Miss, I have been unwell these past few days and had intended to rest. But since you wish to listen, I can manage a passage. Not a historical account, I'm afraid, but a saga I have only recently learned. If it is not to your liking, there is no need to leave a tip." Historical accounts were beyond him. Stories, on the other hand, he had an entire world's worth of source material to draw from. His intentions here were clear and simple. He was not after her silver, nor after the girl herself. He only wanted to establish a connection, leave a favorable impression. Given what her family background might be, a little goodwill at the right moment could be worth more than any amount of money.